In what ways can a mother's approach to her career or work, and you kind of touched base on this, for occupational wellness significantly influence her overall mental state?
I did kind of touch on that. I think you have to be very aware of the season you're in and what your overall goals are. Again, the population I work with, mothers are trying to climb the corporate ladder. So we have to be very upfront with what are you willing to sacrifice.
Before we dive into our conversation with our guest, I want to take a quick moment to invite all of you, our incredible listeners, to connect with us. Please take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to Wednesday Wellness Debrief, wherever you listen to your podcast, and most importantly, write us a review and share your feedback. Your insights help us grow, reach more people, and continue to create content that truly serves your wellness journey. Now, on to the interview. Welcome back to Wednesday Wellness Debrief. Today, we have a truly inspiring guest joining us who is deeply committed to supporting the mental well-being of mothers, especially Black moms, and working mothers. We're thrilled to introduce Shirria McCullough. Shirria is not only a compassionate therapist, but also a dedicated social work career coach and private practice mentor. She's the visionary founder of Mental Wellness Clinical Counseling and Services, an organization dedicated to providing crucial mental health support, particularly for Black moms and those navigating depression and anxiety while balancing the demands of work and family. We're so honored to have you here. Let's give a round of applause. Snaps for you. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you taking your time to be here with us today.
Problem. I'm excited to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I was excited to find other brands. I am excited to find other brands that align with the audience that I am in front of.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. You would think with so many podcasts out there, there would be so many options, but kind of niching it down specifically for Black women is very important.
Right.
But the first question I always ask out the gate, outside of your amazing accolades that I just listed, I want to know who Shirria is. Who are you as a person and an individual?
I look. I always want to start off with I'm a mom, like most people do. But aside from being a mom and a wife and a daughter, the firstborn daughter at that, I'm just an individual who just loves to exist. Honestly, I love outdoor walks, long outdoor walks, like 4 to 5 mile outdoor walks early in the morning. I love the water. My favorite color is blue. My favorite food is pizza. And I just love exploring all new things: horseback riding, traveling, new places, new spaces, all of the things. Very creative, very creative.
Oh my goodness. And yes, my favorite food is pizza as well. So and we can bond over being the eldest daughter as well. But Shirria, could you tell us a bit about what inspired you to dedicate your career to social work and specifically to focus on mental health for mothers?
So I kind of just landed in social work, honestly. It was by default. I was actually going to be a nurse and then did not make it. So I kind of defaulted into social work as my grandmother was a social work. So she was very influential in that decision. I kind of pivoted. I was doing child protective services for a long time, which I actually love because I feel like once you know better, you do better. And I feel like a lot of the practices of particularly Black moms were just lack of knowledge, or Black parents in total. So I really did love that. I loved meeting them where they were and being the one that gave them, when I say them, the clients that ended up in child protective services, being able to confront that stigma of what child protective services was. But after the pandemic, I pivoted out of child protective services into private practice. And if you're not familiar, a lot of times we are our own clients. So I was my client with 5 kids, and working multiple jobs and draining out, being burned out, and just being tired all of the time, but still pushing through. And going into private practice, I strategically set up my day to give myself the self care that I needed in the morning. But I did it specifically that way because I struggled so much with mom guilt. And so I didn't want to take
Mm.
time away from my kids. So I was like, well, I'm going to set my day up to do my self care while my kids are at work, at school. And that worked out great, but I realized that everybody doesn't have that option to structure the thing, pouring back into themselves around their kid or their family's schedule. So I decided, well, I'm gonna help them figure it out, and so here I am.
Oh my gosh, you are like a lifesaver. Honestly, I'm kind of going through that myself,
Hmm.
transitioning out of being a corporate 9 to 5 girly and being so dedicated. I got married last year, and now I'm going through this journey of wanting to start a family. And again, trying to find that balance of, ooh, I still want to be around and working, but I want to be a parent. I want to be present. So, what you're going through, you're preaching to the choir. Woo.
And most of my clients are corporate moms or they're entrepreneurs and they're struggling with, they have this deception of balance. And I have to tell them all the time balance indicates two things. But when you're a mom, it's multifaceted. And then when you're an entrepreneur or you're a career girly, that's multifaceted. So we need to throw away the concept of balance and we need to find your rhythm. And so just that in itself is eye opening because a lot of times they feel like, well, why can't I get this right? I'm trying to balance motherhood and wifehood and sisterhood and siblinghood, all of those things. But then I'm also trying to balance all of these responsibilities of my career or my business, and I just can't get it right. And so, exploring what your rhythm in in this season looks like for you is one of the biggest things that, we do in our therapeutic journey.
I like what you said, rhythm. I think finding the beat of the drum is a little bit more important than the balance. I mean, balance is important, but I like how you phrase that, the rhythm.
Mhm.
Ooh. From your perspective in your field, how do you see the challenges of depression and anxiety manifesting uniquely in working mothers? Kind of piggybacking from that.
So, a lot of times, specifically women of color who are trying to do all of the things feel like they are failing when they are actually experiencing symptoms of depression. So, when the isolation shows up, when the sadness, when the crying spells show up, they feel like they are failing at something. Why can't I just get this right? Which then continues to add the pressure, build the pressure as they continue to convince themselves that they just need to push through. They need to be doing more. They need to be working harder. They need to be, insert all of these unrealistic expectations for themselves here, and it just continues to add the pressure of pushing through, and it continues to build the depression or the symptoms of the depression. Anxiety a lot of times shows up in perfectionism. They the need to control every detail of every aspect of their life. There's a lot of ways that the anxiety prevails or shows up in this particular population. So helping them to try and recognize that this right here is actually a symptom of depression, or this right here is actually a symptom of anxiety. It's not, failure or whatever other way they have negatively internalized it.
Mm. I think again it shows up differently in Black women because again, and you kind of said it, we're so used to like being at the top and doing things for ourselves that when you do have a lull, it's just like, no, the DW sign. Oh, I can't read that sign. You just kind of push through it and not realizing. Even speaking with my therapist, of she tells me you need to take a step back and relax
Hmm.
and calm down and sit in it, and it's
Hmm.
difficult to sit in it because then you have to really sit with the emotion. You can't logically outthink the emotion.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what happened. They try to avoid it, or, the narratives that they tell themselves is like, oh, crying is a weakness, and all of these different things that sometimes we've been programmed or influenced to believe, especially when it comes to our emotions. So even helping individuals figure out that this is an emotion or what emotion, because I think we as in individuals from African American families don't talk about emotions, so we don't recognize anything outside of anger and happiness or excitement or sadness. But we really need to, confront the emotion of jealousy or overwhelm or disappointment, because that helps you to accurately um, deal with that emotion, resolve
Mm.
that emotion.
Mm. Yeah, and again, especially I live in Florida, but I have very southern family
Hmm.
members, and again, it's kind of like there's a particular way that you were raised, and I don't think we realize until we're older we carry that with
Right.
us as we get
Hmm.
into things. And you talked about your experience, your different experiences working in the system.
Hmm.
From your experience, what are some systematic barriers that prevent mothers, particularly Black mothers, from accessing adequate mental health support?
That's a really good question. Obviously, the first one is healthcare, access to healthcare. I definitely think that that is one, particularly with the population that I work with. It's just, and I think it's twofold. We won't take time, and then I think sometimes the expectation for Black women to show up and be extraordinary, inhumane, superhuman employees also kind of influences or justifies or verifies that I don't need to take time off. So I think that is another thing, like the work environment. We have grown up, maybe, and I'm sure you have too, hearing we have to work twice as hard just to get half of what our counterparts get. And I honestly feel like corporations know that we grow up hearing that and that they influence that, and they put on these expectations to feed and to breed that out of us. And so when you do realize that I just need to take a day or 2 days or a week or my 50 or 60 hours of vacation, I also feel like the job sometimes puts barriers in place to allow you to feel comfortable doing that. So I would say that that is one of those as well. And then I just think, even though we do have more conversation about mental health awareness, I still think that there's just such a heavy stigma within the Black and Brown community that
Mm.
prevents us from being comfortable going into or acknowledging that we may benefit from therapy. I don't think, and I tell clients all the time, I don't think everybody needs therapy, but I think everybody benefits from therapy. And even though I'm a therapist, I do tell clients that traditional talk therapy doesn't have to be the only way you heal. You can heal from going outside in nature, you can go to yoga, you can go to church, you can put it all together and just make a holistic type of approach of healing. But I definitely think that those are some of the barriers, the stigma. I'm not going to say the church. I have seen more conversation about people in the church, especially Black churches, pushing mental health awareness. But I still feel like it needs to be a deeper conversation or collaboration between the church and mental health providers to push that narrative forward as well.
Yeah, I can see that, especially talking to friends and family members who are very heavily involved in the church. I do see there is some impact happening of
Mhm.
pushing for mental health, but probably not as quick
Right.
as in society comparatively to the church. But
Right.
I agree with you 1000% on
Mhm.
that. In your work, what is one of the most common misconceptions you encounter about maternal mental health?
Um, I'm not going to say I have encountered a misconception. I just don't think that they have made the connection between the two. I think that there is always, in my experience, there has been a focus on, and that's when it starts. The minute I'm pregnant, I have to do all of the things for the baby, and I don't necessarily need to rest, or I don't necessarily need to do this or that and the third. So I haven't seen, again, in my experience, the misconception. I just don't think that there's awareness around maternal mental health during the pregnancy phase. Now, again, a lot of conversation or awareness does come after the baby is born. And that's where I have seen it. And I would say that the misconception there is just like this is regular part of being a new mom, even if you are a mom of multiple. It's just, oh well, this is new. I'm a new mom, so this is that. Or I have a 1 year old and a newborn, so this is that. And I trying to get that distinction or that understanding and that awareness that no, this could be depression, or this could be anxiety, this can be parental anxiety, this can be depression because of your hormones being out of whack, all of those things, having those type of conversations and making those collaborations with the OBGYN as well as the pediatrician.
I didn't think of that. And kind of becoming new in this field, do you feel as though that those conversations should probably start before, you kind of indicated, start before the P stick turns positive?
I do feel like I tell my kids, I do have five kids, like I said, 25, 21. The 25 and the 21-year-old are females. And then I have a 20 and a 19-year-old, and then my baby is 12. But I'm telling, I'm having these conversations with those four older ones and anybody else who will listen, honestly, young cousins, young clients. I honestly feel like there should be the same type of mental health conversation and preparation for going into parenthood as there is going into marriage. When you sit down, you get married, especially in the church, they push premarital counseling. I think there should be preparental counseling to bring all of this awareness to the new parents of all of these different changes that you can go through. And I don't even honestly, when I attended premarital counseling, we didn't have that mental health component. It was all of these other things that could lead to a mental health challenge or struggle or a trigger, but we didn't necessarily address mental health. And I feel like that component needs to be in both of those aspects of counseling.
Yeah, even when I did premarital counseling, their mental health wasn't really touched on. Everything else was touched on, but that wasn't.
Right.
For giggles, if you could create your own, what would be the top three questions for like that pre-parent questionnaire? What would be the top three things that you would put on like that mental health questionnaire?
I think it's important to identify who were you before you became a mom, because those things we need to revisit once you become a mom. Because one of the biggest triggers, especially with the population that I work with, is feeling like they don't know who they are. So I feel like that's very important. Number one, who were you before you became parents, for moms and fathers? The second thing is, who is your village? Who can you depend on? Because we will need to refer back to that list when you start to feel overwhelmed. And I'm not talking about just the regular, oh, I got great auntie here. Like, I really want to explore what these relationships look like, because I don't want you depending on great auntie over here. If great auntie will watch your child whenever you ask, but she makes you feel bad about it after the fact. Those little conversations like, oh, you always in the street,
Yeah.
you always work. We don't want to hear that, because you probably are already experiencing mom guilt, and we don't need that to be triggered. And I would say that the third one would be, I don't know. I don't know about the third one. I think it would be important to identify the things that make you happy, and
Mm.
that help you feel recentered. Or how do you recenter? Maybe something along that question.
I think those are great questions because again, you're going back to who you are as an individual, and as I'm watching friends and family, like they get so inundated in
Mhm.
their partner and their kids that they kind of forget themselves. And then when the kid is old enough and the partner is still kind of progressing and doing their own thing, they're just kind of standing there, like,
Mhm.
who am I as a person? And especially as Black women, we put so much into other people and pour into other people's buckets
Right.
that we, by the time we realize it, we're just like, oh, no one's poured into my bucket. Everyone has taken turns, and I don't know who I am as a person.
Mhm.
So I think those three questions are awesome and amazing.
Mhm.
Now, I have a controversial question for
Okay.
you. The idea of a perfect mother is often out there. Do you believe that societal ideas of motherhood, even those that are seemingly positive, can contribute to the maternal mental health struggles that women face?
I absolutely do feel like that. the pressure that we put on ourselves, the judgments that we give ourselves, are usually in comparison to social media standards of what women and mothers should be.
Mm.
And when I am working with mothers, particularly new mothers, that is the first thing we talk about is what type of mother do you want to be? And what type of mother did you think you were going to be? Because I definitely think that that comparison, that unrealistic, again, expectation is what can absolutely trigger the pressure, the shame, the guilt, and the judgments of ourselves, can absolutely be what triggers us into a mental health struggle.
I can imagine, yeah, because if you have one thought process and a child is not going to consider
No.
any plan that you have, the child's like, that's lovely, kicks it down and does its own thing. I can see that.
That was my own struggle in, in myself, because I kept trying to be the mom that I had. My mom was a great mom. She was a stay-at-home mom. She didn't have to work. She was very present. She just had us two, my brother and I, and she had a lot of support. At the time that it was just my brother and I, or most of the time it was just my brother and I, she had three other siblings with no children. So we were like the family's babies. So she had a lot of support. And here I am with five kids, or even one, baby number one, then baby number two, three, four, and five. And I don't have that support. I just had my one sibling, and he was murdered. And then my husband, he has an older sibling, but she's a girl. She has her own kids that she had already introduced to the family. So they had she had swiped up all that support. I'm working multiple jobs. She's a stay-at-home mom. So it was just like I keep trying to be her, and I'm an apple and she's an orange, and I need to realize that.
Mm,
Mhm. I had to
not good.
figure out what type of mom fits where I am in this season, and type of changes do I need to make to be the mom that I envision for myself, but still in this season. Because it's unrealistic for me to envision that I can be this active, supportive, 24/7 mom, and I work two and three jobs, or just one job for that fact. So I started to really identify what changes need to be made. And that is how I ended up. One, I switched from working a traditional 9 to 5 to working after hours. So I would work 7 days on, I'd be off 7 days. And that was pivotal. But then, once that season kind of dried up, it was okay, I can go into entrepreneurship and I can structure my days the way that works best for me in this season.
And I think, kind of going back to what you said, a lot of us envision like our grandmothers and our mothers, and even some of the men that we're with. I think they're used to the vision of seeing their grandmothers and mothers like, well, my grandmother had, and again, contribute to my family. My grandmother, I think she had like 7 or 8 kids,
Mm-hmm.
and she was fine. But I was keeping in mind the times were different. She was able to stay at home. The community was more encapsulated, and there was more people involved helping raise. I think, kind of like you said, we have the vision,
Mm-hmm.
but then the reality kind of kicks in, and you're like, oh, that was nice back then, but today is different. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, people have similar situations like you where they're working multiple jobs to kind of keep things afloat, even if they have a partner and kids are in after school stuff. Cost of living is expensive.
It is. Yeah, throw a kid in there, and it's like you barely making it. So
Look, I know how I was as a child, where I liked the makeup and the things and like I want a matte lipstick, and I was like, matte lipstick? What are you talking? It's
right, right.
like, what are you talking? In what ways can a mother's approach to her career or work, and you kind of touched base on this, for occupational wellness significantly influence her overall mental state?
Yeah, I did kind of touch on that. It's again, I think it is. I think you have to be very aware of the season you're in and what your overall goals are. Again, the population I work with, mothers are trying to climb the corporate ladder. So we have to be very upfront with what are you willing to sacrifice. And sometimes, as I know, of course, our therapy sessions are a safe space. So you can't. It is okay for you to say, "Well, I'm willing to sacrifice being there for my kid. Maybe I can't be there for bedtime, or maybe I can't drive my kid to school because I need to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. I need to be first person there, the last person leaving, or whatever. And I think that is very much part of it. What type of mother she is trying to be, and how that aligns or misaligns with the type of work that you are doing. And I think a lot of times, and now I do recognize that some moms don't have the luxury to pick a job that works for them. And if that's the case, then we need to figure out, again, exploring your rhythm, identifying your support to make surviving in that season, work, basically, to allow you to survive in that season. But when you get to the point where you do have a little more luxury, a little more flexibility to choose, what jobs work for you and align again for the type of mother you want to be, then we need to absolutely, take advantage of that. I tell clients all the time, I work for myself now, but I wouldn't take jobs where I couldn't take my kids to school, because that was a non-negotiable for me. I won't they can ride the bus home, but I want to take them to school. So, and then there were some times where I wanted to pick them up from school. So I couldn't take a job that could not, and I'm sending the interview like, hey, I take my kids to school, and I need to pick my kids up from school, because I want y'all to know this up front. I don't want to get the job and then y'all telling me, well, I need you to pick. No. In the interview, we said, I'm having that conversation up front, because if it's not going to work, just let me know. I can move in a different direction. So I think that that's a big part of it. And I know some moms are just not willing to do that. They're not willing to put it out on the table at the beginning. But I would, because I need I need y'all to know. Because I'll go pick that child up from school and not come back now.
Do you feel as though that when you did vocalize, comparatively probably when you did not say it to when you did vocalize, oh no, I have a dead stop at this time and I have to go pick up my baby. Do you feel as though the interviewer or the company respected you a little bit more when you said that? Or do you feel as though that they pulled back, or
I had a variety of reactions sometimes. I feel like sometimes it was like, oh, well, thank you for letting us know. And I still got the job. But then it might not have the supervisor, who I actually know the supervisor was in the interview, kind of felt like, oh, no, I'm going to see how I can push this boundary. Well, you can test me if you want to, ma'am. But I won't be back after I pick this child up. And then there were some times where, it was kind of like, oh, who are you to tell us when you can't work? And so, and I kind of picked that up as well. But for the most part, I had really great supervisors who, were mothers themselves and respected that I put that out on the table. But again, I did also have some supervisors who I feel like they respected it, but they were projecting the fact that they didn't put that boundary in place for themselves. So I shouldn't be able to put that boundary in place for myself. And it was kind of that dynamic.
Ooh, I can imagine. The manager is like, "Ooh, okay, so you're setting this boundary. Let me see if we could test it." I interviewed a doctor, and she worked in healthcare, and she had a boss, and the boss was like, wasn't showing basically the same level of like self care, and the boss literally fell down the stairs, broke all their ribs, and the boss was like, "I need my laptop." And his wife's like, "Yeah, no, you just." And so she's like, she and her team felt that same way. So I can imagine you vocalizing that to probably a boss that feels that way. I'm just like, what do you mean? I fallen down a flight of stairs and broke my ribs. Your kids will be fine. My kids are fine. It's kind of
like, I love that for you, but that doesn't work for me.
And look, and I love that we're in the season of Black women just like, no, and no explanation after. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I refuse to do it. You can ask someone else to do it if that is their ministry, great. But it's not for me. It's not for me.
I don't want people to think that, like, it took me a long time to get to that point, because I very well was I work late, I work on the weekends, I work on the holidays, and then one day, actually, I was in a meeting and they were telling us all of these different things. When I did work for Child Protective Services, they were telling us all these different changes they wanted us to make. And I always tell the story because it was like eye-opening. And this one non-black person stood up and was like, "No, I can't do that. I have to go to the gym." And nobody challenged her. It was a room full of black women, black superiors, and maybe two other non-black employees. And this white woman, she stood up and she was like, "I'm not doing that. I have to go to the gym. I have a gym appointment at 5 o'clock." And nobody challenged her. Now, I don't know if she was challenged after the fact, but I do know she did not work late. And so I was like, "Oh, that's how that works? Game on." So
It's like, you gave me the tools. Thank you. I will take these tools. I'm like, since I now know it's available, I will just use it.
mhm,
I
absolutely.
I love that. No, I think again, I was watching Love Island,
Mhm.
and so the saying everyone's been saying like, oh yeah, just black women just cry, just cry and use all the tools because apparently
It
everyone
works.
else can use it, but we also need to use it. And again, I can acknowledge because I'm slowly taking off the cape, but
Mhm.
wearing that cloak of nothing bothers me. I'm impenetrable, and literally going home and like breaking down in
Mhm.
tears, like in the comfort of my home after just holding it in all day
Yeah.
is no.
Yeah.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. Second to last question.
Mhm.
There's This is my last controversial question. There's a debate about whether workplaces are doing enough to support the mental health of the working mother, and we kind of touched on this a little bit. From your viewpoint in your work, what is the biggest missing piece in corporate support for maternal well-being, and whose responsibility is it to fix?
That is a really good question. I would say the biggest component is recognizing that moms carry a mental load that absolutely can impact the quality of the work that moms do in comparison to men. And I don't even think it should be compared to men, but I do think that it is. Cause and I get it, in a company you're just comparing employee to employee. But I think the men's mental load is significantly less than a woman's mental load. We're at work thinking, okay, did we take out dinner? Okay, my kids need to be picked up by 3 o'clock. They have ballet at 7 o'clock. That means I need to leave work at 5 o'clock. Then I have, and men are just like, see if I can meet at the bar. That's a generalization. And I know that's not the
Football, like, oh, I'm going to the football game over at my friend's house. Da da da. Or I'm going to go.
I don't think that they carry the same load that moms do. And so I think that definitely needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to, women's mental health and how it is protected and encouraged in a corporate setting. But I also think again it is the mom's responsibility, the mom employee's responsibility to advocate for herself and speak up. Now again, I do recognize that everybody doesn't have that luxury. I tell people all the time, I will walk away from a job in a minute because I only have one non-negotiable, and that is this job does not need to compromise who I am as a mother. And at
Mm.
any point, I feel like the job is compromising. It's time for me to go because my kids only get one mom. Y'all will have a line full of employees come through here. I came to this job looking, I can go to the next one looking. But what I will not do is let a job compromise my responsibilities as a mom. Because if something happens to me, who else is there? So, and everybody does not have that luxury. So I do think especially corporations, because again, a lot of the moms that I work with or are corporate employees, and the reason that they are on the other side of my screen or in my chair is because they feel like they're failing, they feel like they're not doing enough in comparison to their peers. A lot of their peers are, men or white men, and then, not having the support to put themselves first, to show up 100% or 110% in all of these different roles. So I do think it's a shared responsibility, but I think the corporation also needs to send the message that it is okay to, blah, 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 blah. It's okay to take a mental health day. It's okay to need to take a break. It's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to pour into yourself. I think that they need to send that message. And I've seen more corporations do it. I have a few employees who have like unlimited PTO, and I think that that is great. Even when I was in corporate, I saw like the breastfeeding rooms or the mental health spaces. So I think the conversation is increasing, but I also don't know if it's increasing enough to address the pressure that they know that moms and even more particularly Black women put on themselves to outperform or just
Mm,
go.
yeah. Just and I can attest to it, as a Black woman in corporate America, again, like you said earlier, you work twice as hard to get half. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just mentally exhausting to the point where you just kind of feel like, okay, so what's the point anymore? I'm working so hard and doing these things. I'm not even getting the same accolades
Right.
as my non-Black counterpart who's doing half the stuff that I'm doing. And
Right.
and so then you just kind of tap out, and then that's when it's kind of like, well, you're not keeping up your part of the bargain. I'm just like, you don't recognize me until I do something wrong. So what's the point?
Mhm.
It's exhausting.
It is. And then, on top of that, the mental load, but then, I can't think of the term. It's on the tip of my tongue. But with how Black people have to show up in corporate settings as opposed to white. So we have to do that. We're performing this whole entire time. I wish I knew the term for it, but it's
Oh
like,
yeah, I was like, I like to say putting a mask on. Like you're putting like
mhm,
a very happy mask on. You're smiling through
mhm.
the day, even though you have all these things, and even in society, when
Code
things are,
switching.
get
That's
there, you go, code switching. Yeah. Oh,
code switching. Yes.
oh.
So we're at work with this mental load. We're code switching. We have to make sure our tone is not this, so we're not aggressive, or that we don't say this, so that we don't, hurt someone else's feelings, or we're not the mad Black woman, or it's just all of the things. And so women already have a mental load, but I feel like Black moms have, even more.
Mm. Oh yeah, and it's funny occasionally. And it happened to me in my last corporate job where like the code switching breaks and like the real you comes out, and they just look at you and you're like, no, 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 don't mind that. Go back to the way I was. That's not a work thing. That was a slip up. Don't.
Absolutely.
If you could impact one fundamental truth about maternal mental health to every new mother, and you probably do in your sessions, what would it be and why?
That's a really good question. I would have to say, hmm, I would say keep yourself at the center. And what I mean by that is, like I said, identify who you were before you were a mom or a wife or a corporate employee and all of these things, and figure out how you need to evolve, but don't abandon who you were. Evolve who you were, mature who you were. You can keep a piece of that person. You can keep a piece of that little girl who loves to frolic in the rain. You can keep a piece of, your sense of humor. You don't have to be so serious. Now that you're a mom, you can laugh and joke with your kids. You can go play with your kids. Keep a piece, keep yourself at the center, but always be exploring how you can evolve who that person is into the season that you need or that you're in.
Mm, I love that. I think even again, I'm going through my motherhood journey. I think that's something that I've been fighting, and
Mhm.
I'm hearing a lot of women fight of like the screaming. I was a mother. I was a person before I was your mother,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I think that that is something that I hear women trying to keep with themselves. I'm so happy that you are teaching that to other Black women who need to hear that, because sometimes we don't hear it enough.
I know, and I can understand that. We're always talking about, we as in the clients and I, always talking about like the influence and the programming from our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunties. And I think that there is. I used to always joke about, like as soon as you have a child, like you go through this. I hate my child's father, period. But I think it's because we go through this immediate like warp once we become a mom that I just don't feel like men go through. And then we become this overprotective, very serious. Everything is about this child and their well-being, and men are over here like, I'm still going to the football game, and that's fine. That is fine. But I do think that it definitely has an impact on our relationships, like this metamorphosis we go through the minute that child slips through that birth canal, and mentally, how we mentally prepare or are preparing for that. And I think it just gets lost. And then we have, these people in our family, these influences that kind of continue to perpetuate, like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, you're a mom, or you dress like that, you're a mom, or you
Oh,
talk
yeah.
like that, you're a mom, you do this and you're a mom. And it's like, but I'm still here.
Right.
I still like to drink. I still like to have sex. I want to go play. I want all of these things. Like, how do you think I'm still me?
I was like, I was still a hot girl before the baby. I'm still a hot girl when I have the baby. I'm still like, it's because there's a baby attached to it doesn't mean it's lost upon me. And kind of going back to what you said, like, this is who I am. Like, in words of Beyonce, this is me from the Red.
Absolutely.
Shirria, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your passion, and your invaluable experience with our audience today. Your work at Mental Wellness Clinical Counseling and Services is truly making a difference in the lives of so many Black mothers and mothers addressing critical aspects of their mental and emotional well being. But where can the people find you? If they want it for your services, do you have any products or resources that people can utilize in
Well,
the
I
time we're in now?
do. Thank you very much for asking. So I currently have a mom reset toolkit. It talks all about like how to rediscover your self care as an ambitious millennial Black mom that doesn't feel like, or that doesn't make self care feel like just one more thing to do. And that is available on my website. The website is www.mentalwellness, C as in cat, C as in cat, S.com. There is a wealth of resources over there specifically for ambitious Black moms. There's some freebies, there's a blog, there's also, you can sign up for the newsletter. Then I am also on Instagram and Facebook. The handles the same on both, mentalwellnessccs.com.
Awesome. And everything will be in the description below. Hopefully, YouTube does not change. Everything will be in the description below for you to get in contact and find these amazing resources. And before you go, don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, and leave your comments and feedback. Your engagement helps us reach more moms and continue these vital conversations. Join us next time on Wednesday Wellness Debrief as we continue to explore the pillars of wellness and empower you to live your most vibrant life. Until then, take care, shine brightly, and see you next week.